Welcome, beautiful listeners, to our second last episode of Season 1, our 9th episode of the Young and Successful podcast. I sincerely hope you enjoyed last week's episode with Stefan. He is one of the hardest workers I know, and he is always on the go. Someday soon, some of you may even see him at the front of your classes as one of your professors. This week, I have one of my closest friends from well over a decade coming on. He is here to provide us with some unique perspectives on education, teamwork, and overall wealth creation that we haven't heard of yet. I am your host, Carl Grin, and I'm thrilled to have you join us as we delve into the money-making magic. So, Graham Johnson, welcome on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Carl. It's a pleasure.
One. Yeah, I've known you since grade 9, right at the start.
Yeah, grade 9 geography class.
Yeah, with Mr. Hondrick. Yeah, that's been a close one. I think I know you pretty well. We talk a lot of different things. We went both to school at Ottawa. We did a lot of stuff, but the average person and the people listening might not know who Graham is. So tell us a little bit about yourself there, Graham.
I'm Graham. I've been a friend of Carl's since the host here, since we were in grade 9, and we went through high school together. And then by chance, we ended up going to university together in Ottawa, and so our relationship has developed over time. Having similar interests during university, we were interested we went skiing a lot on weekends to Tremblant.
A lot of Fridays too. A lot of Fridays.
We did.
Yeah, you'd skip a class, but then you'd make up for it earlier in the week or after in the week by the same professor at a different time.
Yeah. No, it was. It definitely made second and third year fun to be able to go skiing.
Yeah, we went skiing all the time, pretty much every week. We'd buy seasons passes and we'd get it going. But I studied business at U Ottawa, and you studied engineering at Carleton.
Yes.
Remember when we used to skate the canal over your class and come to your lectures, or you would come to mine and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, in Ottawa, it has the world's longest skating rink. You can skate about 7 kilometers from the downtown to the university, which is my university, Carleton.
And mine was on the other side of the canal, right downtown. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was fun. We also share an interest in business and entrepreneurship. Probably due to our backgrounds. Both of our families have their own businesses. My family, there's been many businesses. My dad had a construction company that he ran up until recently. We have a wood-fired pizzeria in cottage country in Muskoka, which is an area north of Toronto that is a wealthy summer destination.
It's called Pizza on Earth in Dorset. Yeah, if anybody wants to come up anywhere up here to get the best pizza in Ontario, you guys were actually named in a magazine as
So not the magazine. We were Yelp, which is a ratings website online similar to TripAdvisor. They aggregated all the data from the reviews from pizzerias across Canada and the United States.
Yeah.
And Pizza on Earth was ranked as the 18th best pizza in Canada.
By Yelp reviews, okay.
By Yelp, yeah. So that's based upon volume of reviews and overall rating.
So volume too, that'd be hard for you to get the bigger volume sitting up in the middle of nowhere here in Dorset.
And all our fellow pizzerias that made that list were in Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, Calgary.
Yeah, all big city things. I remember reading that. And then also you were named as the Bartlett Lodge Alternative or whatever. I remember seeing.
Oh yeah, no. So So Bartlett Lodge, which is a lodge in Algonquin Park, they got a Globe and Mail profile on them this summer as a road trip destination to come to in the summer up north. And Bartlett Lodge actually, there was a shout out for us for Pizza on Earth. Is a good thing to do.
You've been for a little small town, little pizzeria place where it's been a long time. So is that where you are now? You went to engineering school. Did you want to tell me a little bit about that? Actually, we went to high school together.
Yeah.
You took a year off to travel. I had some concussions and stuff. We both graduated. We ended up going to U Ottawa and Carleton at the same year. Yeah. And then I was there for business. You were there for engineering. Well, you're not are you an engineer now? Do you have the ring?
I can't. You can't. I have the ring. I have the ring.
But okay.
So this is a tradition in Canada to give engineers the iron ring when they graduate, and it's made from the steel of the Quebec Bridge, which was
the one in Montreal that collapsed.
Yeah, right? It collapsed, and it was due to negligence. And it's supposed to serve as a reminder to engineers of their duty to be to not be negligent with their designs. So I went into electrical engineering at Carleton. I did that not because I had a particular interest in designing things, but because I really didn't know what I was going to do after high school. And I thought engineering had the most educational potential
Yeah, you and I discussed it back then. It was engineering is the most valuable undergraduate degree to get. So why
Yeah.
not go get that one? It was that simple.
Yeah. And I think it was 100% worth it. Because at university, I mean, engineering is such an onerous degree. There's so much work put on you that it teaches you how to deal with a lot of stress, a lot of due dates over and over again, constantly, like never ending due dates. And it's good practice for life, no matter what you do, whether you're designing electronics or making pizza.
That's a fair point. Most
Yeah.
people wouldn't equate or a difference or be able to pull a commonality out of going to engineering all the time and then making pizza. That's typically
Yeah.
people don't bring those together, which is kind of interesting. So
Yeah.
right now, Graham got his ring, but he is not an engineer because you have to study for a few years, right? Is that what it
Well, you
is? Or
have, in order to legally call yourself an engineer in Canada, you have to pass the PEng, Professional Engineer's Exam, which requires 4 years of work experience
Hmm,
out after your undergrad degree. And I've only got, I worked for a bit as a co-op student, which would have counted towards that in Ottawa. So I only have 8 months
okay.
towards my 4 years of
So you're
experience.
not trying to get your PN, it's not a goal then.
Not working towards it. Although if I had a job elsewhere, I may. But a lot of engineers don't even get their PEng. If they work for a big engineering department at a company, they don't need to.
Yeah, they just
Yeah,
get the job, they work and they get the hours and they get
yeah.
the years of experience, but they don't therefore
They never write the
need the
exam.
test. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, interesting. I didn't know
yeah.
that. I thought if you got your like engineering
Well, they might
degree,
be eligible to get the right exam, but it's a hard exam apparently. And
yeah.
if you've already got your job and there's another engineer that can sign off in your department on
Well,
your
so you
drawings,
need to sign off.
well, yeah, it gives you the ability to sign your name, get your engineer's stamp.
Okay, yeah, that
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense. So where are you now then? You finished engineering school
yeah.
and you said, no, I don't want to be an engineer, or you never wanted to, and that was that, and then you,
Well, no, not necessarily. Engineering always remains on the table.
okay.
I just I believe in pursuing opportunity wherever it presents itself, and we all have unique backgrounds that we come from, and in my case, I did what I thought made the most sense. My When I graduated in 2021, my sister, who had started this wood-fired pizzeria that we were talking about, she was no longer she no longer wanted to be involved with this pizzeria, and so we were at a bit of a crossroads with this business because it had just started as a little business in the corner of my dad's wood shop, but it had grown steadily every year,
I
and we
remember
actually had a
that.
lot of money invested in equipment and in renovations, and we had to decide: are we going to run with this, or are we going to try and sell this? Now, the business wasn't entirely sellable because,
No.
as many family businesses are, there aren't the procedures in place. There isn't the necessarily the reputation in place to really give it. Well, maybe we had a bit of a reputation at that point, but
But it was
family businesses aren't generally well run,
well,
so it's hard to sell them, right?
yeah, and the idea that it
Hmm.
relies on your family,
Yeah,
right? Like you and your brother and your
yeah,
mom and your dad were
hmm
making the pizzas, we're taking the phone calls, like we're
yeah,
doing everything, right? So if you go to sell that business, you're effectively just selling a job, right? Like
yeah, yeah,
if you sold that business to somebody, it's not like there's a management team in place. I'm going to get my 7% returns, my 12% returns, or whatever, and they're going to
yeah,
see it
yeah,
like an investment return. They're going to be like, okay, no, I've bought a job. I need to get a house up here. Now it's a
yeah,
full-time summer thing,
yeah.
right? So that is harder to sell. Yeah.
So yeah, we had that choice, and in the pizzeria, although it's hard work and it's not overly prestigious work like being an engineer would be. So I mean, those are negatives for it, but it was very profitable. I mean, we were selling high quality pizzas at $20 to $25 a pizza,
And you're
which is
obviously
generally at the higher end of food prices.
and A, everybody's
Yeah,
telling you you can up your prices, and B, you're obviously selling enough volume if you're getting up there on the Yelp reviews to be in the top 20 pizzas in
yeah,
Canada to
yeah.
compete with the cities.
Well, we sell
So
about 30,000 pizzas in a season, and we're only a seasonal business. Maybe the viewers, this is important to clarify. We're only open from the beginning of May of a given season until Thanksgiving weekend, Canadian Thanksgiving. So October, about the first week of October.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
May and June, and then getting into September, it's not people who are living up here full time anymore. It's not there in the summers. You don't have as
Hmm.
many people on summer vacation. So you're primarily open on the weekends, right? Like I remember
Yeah.
coming over, like you're not open 7 days a week.
Not in May and June and September.
Exactly.
Yeah, but in July and August we run 7 days a week.
Yeah,
We're
and
open about 70 days straight.
so
Yeah.
then how many of those 70 days do you work? Because most people are like, I want to work my 9 to 5. I want to be done.
Every single day.
70 days straight. How
Yeah,
many
yeah.
hours a day on average?
Start about 7 a.m. and go until 9 p.m. So that's 14 hours.
You've been there before 7 lots when you guys are doing bagels and stuff.
Occasionally, yeah, you get there a little earlier when we're doing some other stuff. But I'd say reliably 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
I think that's one of the reasons why we got along so well in high school and things like that is because in the summers, I'd do 14, 15 hours a day, every day.
Yeah.
Literally, summer would hit me. We'd be running our family's seasonal business, the camp. You'd run that. We'd just go to that mode. We wouldn't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And then around the fringe seasons, we're like, hey, we're done. What are you doing?
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
thing. Like, we never actually see anybody during the summer except, who relates to the business and running it here. And then
it's a really great business model to have a seasonal business, and people they don't realize that. They think, oh, it's too bad you don't have cash flow all year round. But in the off season, with a seasonal business, you get time to improve your business, you improve your systems, renovate, really like sit down and figure out where you can improve. And it gives you the much needed rest you need. And when you start again in May, you're all ready to go and excited. You're excited to work.
Yeah.
So
that's a good viewpoint on a seasonal business. It gives you that time off to think and improve your processes.
Yeah. There's no burnout. There's no chance of burnout, even though you're working 7 days a week, 14 hours a day in the summer, because you know there's an end. Come September 7th, you've at least got some days off, and then come October 10th, you're off.
I don't know. Okay, I agree. I've had that the whole time too. But we've had a lot of employee burnout when we don't impose those same strict rules on our employees, but usually they end up just following along, right? You've hired a bunch of people, I've hired a bunch of people, and then they just start working with us before summer, and we go, okay, now it's been your 40 hours, your 44 hours, your 48 hours, you can take a break. And they go, what are you going to do? I'm like, oh, I'm going to keep working. And they keep working and they keep doing it with us because they're almost our assistants. They come with us and they're doing that, and they burn out so heavily.
So these are your camp counselors?
Well, we have it sometimes with the pre-camp staff doing all of the construction and stuff that goes right into camp. And you've had it with your pizza chefs.
Well, dealing with employees is probably the single hardest part of any business. Everything else can be calculated, premeditated, figured out ahead of time. You can forecast it really easily.
Yeah.
You cannot forecast how good your employees are going to be. You never know. And you can't even tell it in an interview. That's the crazy thing about it.
I disagree, but okay.
Yeah, well, we've had employees that don't interview very well, and they've turned out to be great. And we've had employees that have interviewed really well, and it's just been horrible.
Yeah, I feel like with an interview, I've done a lot of interviews, I've hired a lot of people, and I feel like you can't ever guarantee in an interview, but you can get a pretty good stance based on your questions and your ability with interviewing. Like, it's never a perfect thing.
But would you agree that employees are the hardest part of running a small business?
I think employees are the hardest part of a small business, but specifically a seasonal small business.
Yes.
Because if you want somebody to actually help manage your business and actually help do the bookkeeping and help do that kind of like the actual business side of things, they're gonna usually want a full-time job, right? The people that are doing that usually want a little more of a full-time job. It's like, okay, then look at that. And up here, the people that want to start a family, want to start a home, so you have to pay them the amount of money to be willing to survive up here and actually kind of pay rent and do that kind of stuff. And rent's surprisingly expensive up here. But you don't need them to work 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, 50 weeks a year.
Yeah.
You only need them to do 50 hours a week in that summer, and then maybe 5 or 10 in the off season. So that's our biggest struggle with staffing.
Yes, the seasonality is tricky.
Is it that the seasonality? That's the hardest part. That's why it ends up falling on my family a lot and your family a lot in that regard to the pizzeria, because like you do all your accounting. I'm the one with the business degree and studied accounting.
Yeah.
Or I do it when I do it here. It's like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You do all your accounting and all your finances there, right?
Well,
like
that's the second most difficult part of running a small business, accounting. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to bring it back to your like, the small business, no long-term cash flow. Well, you do have year-round cash flow right now. You do have multiple businesses, and we're looking at starting other ones. Like, I know about your storage units, and we're talking about starting a gym, and you do so many different things. And again,
these are just ideas, right? And it's all I think it's always important to be planning. But the storage
units is a full working thing, and you're expanding it regularly.
Yeah,
right?
So we have a moderately sized storage facility right beside our pizzeria. It's got about 84 units right now. So
and what's your occupancy rate? Are you generally pretty full, pretty empty?
We just built a new one, but generally it's almost full all the time. Yeah,
which is crazy to me. I'm like, okay, I remember looking into that, and we were in university, and you're telling me about that, and you're like, 2 things that are recession proof are prisons and storage units.
Yeah.
When the markets are good, people want storage units. When the markets are bad, people really want storage units.
Yeah. They're upsizing or downsizing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Storage units do not do well though in times of static house prices. They do well when they're changing.
Well, good thing we live in Canada.
Yeah,
it's never going to be...
either going up or going down.
Yeah, Canada's pretty crazy with that. Yeah. So what led you to this idea of wealth creation and wealth building at a young age? Like, what was your driving factor? Because most people go to school and they get that idea as, you're going to high school, I went to university, Now I am going to work as an engineer, and I'm
Yeah,
going to do this. And I'm going to pay off my student loan debt. I'm going to do this and do that. When you said
yeah.
pizzeria is more profitable, how many engineers did you go to school with? And I went to school with it. If I said no, it's going to be more profitable and a better financial decision for Graham to not do anything he just learned in the past 4 years regarding academics and go run a pizzeria. Everybody would be like, "You are crazy."
Well, don't get me wrong. I mean, going and getting an engineering job um is not a bad idea. Um,
But what did you
yeah.
what inspired? Now what I'm getting at is your
Uh-huh.
mental acuity and why did you believe and what gave you the idea at a younger age that there are other options than just going to school and getting a
Well,
job?
the pizzeria in my situation was already started. I mean, the amount of work to grow it is less than having to start it from nothing.
So
So it
you
made sense to run with what I had.
Yeah, and so what you
Yeah.
had is how did you come across that? Like most people on this podcast have
hmm
just they went to school and they did something themselves fully from scratch.
hmm
Did you have any assistants, any mentors? Like how did you come into
Oh
building
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
pizzeria?
yeah. So the pizzeria, it's, and I do not want to take credit for building this pizzeria at all. I mean, it has been a decade plus of work on the part of many of my family members. My mother, my father, me, my sister, my brother. Even, I mean, we've all been heavily involved in the success of the pizzeria. And if all of us hadn't been there, it probably wouldn't be around. It probably would have been a little fun summer project we did for 1, 2, maybe 3 summers, and maybe we made 3,000 pizzas a summer. But right now that's not the case because each member of our family brought a specific skill set to the pizzeria to allow it to grow. My sister, she's a very, very creative woman. I mean, she was the one who came up with the name of the business, the whole idea of doing it, the recipes. We're still using the recipes she came up with in 2010. Haven't changed anything. She's she came up with the names. All the names of our pizzas are puns off of local tourist
Yeah, like
attractions.
my favorite's the Lake of Basil because it's the
Yeah,
Lake of Bays, right?
yeah. So our lake that Dorset, my village, is on is called Lake of Bays, and one of our most popular pizzas is the Lake of Basil.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
she got a lot of
yeah,
fun little names,
yeah,
right? Like your Hawaiian is the Fire Tower because
yeah,
everything there. Like you have a lot of little fun names, a lot of different fun stuff there. I didn't know
yeah.
your sister came up with all those.
Yeah, so she's a very, very creative individual. So she contributed that to the business. My dad, he spent his career as a custom home builder, so doing really nice woodworking in houses, and so he was able to renovate and do maintenance on the building, and allowed us to expand. And every year at the pizzeria, we always added a little bit here and there. The original space always needed to be modified, and so that was also a big part of growing the business. My mom, she is really great with people. So she was really good at finding employees, hiring people, customer service, dealing with complaints. That's a big part of running a business is dealing with
Huge,
complaints.
huge
Yeah.
part. Yeah.
Yeah. You gotta do that carefully.
Yeah, it's really nice
hmm
that you brought up that you have the full family
hmm
unit there and you had all your different skills and
Yeah.
abilities, right? Like
hmm
it's not that you just started something from scratch. You were able to build these very successful businesses for this small area based on what your dad and your mom and your sister and your family had provided a bit, right?
Yeah.
Like you didn't walk in and be like, okay, I'm going to start a storage unit business. I have to buy land,
Yeah.
right? Your dad already had a little bit of that, and you have the commercial land in a good
Yeah.
area,
Yeah.
right? You're like, we've talked about this lots when I was going through my phase and stuff. I'm like, I want to do everything on my own. I want to build on my own 2 feet. I don't want to like
Yeah.
be on anybody's back.
Yeah.
You're like, why? That's dumb.
Yeah.
Like my dad's commercial land. I'm going to do on that. Like, why would I want to swim upstream that hard? Why would I want to
Yeah.
fight that much? Why wouldn't I use the resources that are available? Of course, I want to support my parents and they're going to
Yeah.
support me, right? That's always been your attitude because you've had a very strong family unit.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's
You got to build off the work that's been done before you
yeah, and then there's no
and
shame in it.
improve on it.
There's no shame in it. There's no
Not at
idea that
all.
there's nothing bad.
Yeah.
That's what the lesson that you've taught me pretty good is there's nothing bad to, actually get that helping hand at the
hmm
start.
hmm
And not everybody necessarily has a full family as
No, no.
that is theirs, but there are people that are willing to help and stuff, and you can actually
But
take a
you
little bit
you
of it.
always have an area where you're going to have an advantage over other people. There's got to be some place that you can identify as having some sort of strength. And then I would recommend to people to try running with that skill that they have. And maybe it is just getting an engineering job, right? Maybe that is. But that still puts you above a lot of people, right? So
Yeah. Well, even with that advantage, I think that leads pretty well into this next kind of
mhm,
topic. Even if you have the best advantages out there, right?
mhm,
If you want to be if you're like a Michael Phelps and you got the longer arms and the web
mhm.
fingers and the web toes and stuff, you're still gonna and you want to be a swimmer, you're gonna
Yeah.
have a lot of advantages like that. But you with your pizzeria and everything, you have a lot of advantage with the family. But what are the challenges and obstacles you faced despite those advantages? Can you name one or discuss a little story about a reason of a Something you're like, oh shoot, that didn't go well, or
Obstacles,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I probably change. I mean, we're resistant to change. We get in a rut, probably doing things in a inefficient way. Mainly with equipment. I mean, it took us years until we would go out and buy expensive dough making equipment for the pizzeria when we should have bought it years before, and it would have saved us lots of money. But we weren't looking to shell out tens of thousands of dollars at the time, even though we would have made a return on that.
Hmm.
So we're slow moving. We are.
What was that quote that Elon Musk talked about? You got to hire an engineer to uh, optimize an obsolete process. Have you heard that one? You showed me that
Yeah,
video a while ago. It's like sometimes the
yeah,
process just needs to be eliminated. The manually making pizza dough, right?
yeah.
You instead of optimizing
That's what a
what
good engineer does. Yeah,
yeah, they optimize an
yeah.
obsolete process.
They eliminate steps. That's the
Yeah,
goal of an
but he's
engineer.
yeah. So
Yeah,
his idea was some engineers will optimize because he was saying in school you're never taught that you can say this question's stupid.
yeah,
I want to do something completely different. Why would I do all these
yeah,
steps,
yeah,
right? So with your pizzeria and everything is that instead of the making the dough, for an example, you guys would do better at making dough at the time, like
yeah,
setting it all up, like when we used to have pizza parties at my place.
yeah.
When you have to do the dough and all that versus just buying a dough mixer. Like you got that last year, right?
Well, I don't know. We've always had a dough mixer, but
Oh,
there's these equipment
oh, the dough press thing.
that can yes, it divides the dough into the right quantities really quickly,
Okay,
like large amounts of dough, like 20 kilos at a time, and then you put it into this big rounder, and it creates the nice little round dough balls that
that's
you
what I
then
was
stick in the
thinking.
fridge, and you
Yeah.
allow them to proof for 24 hours before you make them into a pizza. And so we've got it down to being able to do 225 dough balls in about an hour and a half,
And you also sell those
with
dough
one
balls now.
employee.
And you sell those dough balls now too, don't
Yeah,
you?
it's actually an area that I'm trying to get into more, selling frozen pizza dough balls to other stores.
So you're an
So
independent at
yeah,
Huntsville, right?
yeah. We got into the independent recently. Hasn't been selling that well, to be honest with you.
I feel like it's
Um,
just people don't know about it. But like I
but
would have never thought
yeah,
had your pizzas the whole time, lots my whole
yeah,
life. But I would have never thought to go buy a pizza dough ball. I didn't even know those were a thing to buy.
yeah. It'd be interesting if we got into more stores, like maybe
Yeah,
half a dozen, 10 stores, and see, like, because it's not a very high volume
yeah,
product for a retail outlet, right? Because
yeah. That
people
makes sense.
they want to buy a pizza ready to go, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Um,
Those
but
frozen pizzas. Yeah.
frozen pizzas are an interesting area that I want to get into more. We've the last couple of years, we've been selling just to local stores near Dorset, but I'd like to start trying to make more of them. Um,
So, but just
yeah,
quickly going back a little bit, the obstacles that you're slow to change. How do you think you
yeah.
overcome that obstacle? How do you think you overcome obstacles generally? What's your viewpoint on that?
How well? There's a lot of hard work.
Yeah, fair.
It's kind of unpopular in the modern way of thought to that hard work is the way to get ahead. People associate it with the very Protestant farming sort of attitude of maybe 100 years ago, but there's a lot of truth to it. I mean, if you're going to solve problems, you've got to just be entirely focused on solving the problem and not give up until it's done. And you got to put in long hours to do it. It's not going to happen. You can't hire people to do it. If you keep on hiring people to do everything for you, you're going to go bankrupt. And this is sort of, I think, the modern way people think is, oh, I'll just outsource this. I'll hire someone to do it. But the bills add up, and at the end of the day, I mean, the buck has to stop with you as the business owner, and you have to be there. Your ass is on the line, and you
Yeah,
got to solve the
fair.
problem.
That's fair.
So I'm a strong believer in that whenever there's an obstacle, like we talked about equipment issues, there could be any obstacle. You could have a bunch of employees sick on an August long weekend when you need them. Um,
I've had that. Yeah.
you don't.
When you
Um,
call in David and Jack and they just make
yeah.
pizzas all day.
Well, or you just do it yourself. You step up, and if you're going to be an owner of a business, you can't have this attitude that I'm just going to hire the employees. I'm just going to manage this. No. If you're owning a business, there are going to be times. I hope you don't have to, but there's going to be times where you're going to be on the floor taking the cash register, cleaning the bathrooms, cleaning the toilets, picking up garbage in the parking lot. I mean, this is because you're the only person who's going to do it. An employee is not going to do a good job cleaning your toilet.
Well, they might if they really desire to, but you can't expect somebody. I think the thing that's really important, you can't
Yeah,
expect somebody that you
yeah,
hire off the street, off an interview, their first day there, to take the same care
yeah,
and dealing with the customer, to picking up the garbage, to cleaning the toilet,
yeah,
whatever the job you hire them to do, as you would if it's your toilet, your
yeah,
front lawn, your cash register. You can't expect them
yeah.
to take the same care. because in the end, that's not like they haven't worked their whole lives or their years or whatever for that
Yeah.
job,
Yeah.
right? So that's a big thing. I
And
think
they're getting paid $15 an hour. I mean,
a lot of people, I think, expect their employees to just automatically care,
yeah.
and
Well, they're going
that's
to care what their wage is, right? I
yeah.
mean, yeah.
But they just expect them to automatically just care for the business and care for
Yeah.
the well-being
Yeah.
and put in that extra mile for
Mhm.
everything. And
Mhm.
I feel like that has to be earned both ways.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm really interested in ways of motivating employees, like ways to do that. I know something I've heard about Frank, Frank Stronach.
Yeah.
He's been very he's
Yes.
the owner of Magna
Magna,
Auto
yeah,
Parts.
it's mom's friend.
Oh,
We used to
really?
teach his
Oh,
daughter
okay.
skating and everything. Yeah,
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Stronach family. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's really big on profit sharing.
Yes.
That's sort of his shtick. Like whenever
It's
whenever he writes an op-ed or something, it's about profit sharing and the importance of that.
that was the thing with Amazon till last year, the year
Oh,
before.
really?
Every
Yeah.
single employee got ownership stake in the company. They got
Oh,
stock
okay.
options.
Huh.
Right, usually right at the start. Yeah, at your 6 month anniversary, your 1 year
Yeah.
anniversary, you get more and more stock.
And that they're not doing that anymore?
They're not doing that for hourly associates anymore
Oh, okay.
because I think the turnover is a little too high.
Yeah.
At least in Canada, and then managers still get the stock options, but they start at the 2 year mark because it's all cash
Oh, okay.
bonuses
Yeah.
at the start. Because I think Amazon just grew too fast,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
administering that many stock options that large to that many people, right? Like my site had over 3,000 people at it, administering stock options for 3,000 people, and we were one of 9 in Toronto.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that was. But yeah, this Frank, the Stronach family is big into that too. Idea like
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. I wonder how that. I've always wondered how that would play out in a smaller business setting. If you could if you could motivate minimum wage employees to produce a bit more, if they got
percent
more
profits.
money in proportion to the numbers of pizzas being made.
Yeah,
It's something I've thought about. Yeah.
that's an interesting one. So then I guess if that's one way to motivate employees, how would Graham Johnson? How would you define success? Because it's obviously not just
Well, financial
monetary.
success.
No,
Wow.
just success in general. Because it's obviously
Yeah.
not monetary. Because you brought up earlier that there's a big benefit to running a
Yeah.
small seasonal business,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
take the time off and you can actually
Yeah.
rest, reset. We can go do
Yeah.
snowmobile trips through Northern Ontario like we did, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what would you define as success?
Well, I think success is being able to take on responsibility and in the
Success is
world.
being able to take on responsibility.
Yes, yes.
That's the opposite. Usually people,
I'm taking
wow.
that. Yeah, I'm taking that from Jordan Peterson. To be fair, I mean that's his whole thing, right?
Yeah, but still,
But
that's the opposite of usually success is being able to have people do things for you. That's what usually people think. Oh, I don't have to do that. I don't have to do that. I have the money. So
yeah,
wow, take
no,
on
I think people
responsibility.
feel a lot of like pleasure deep down by taking on responsibility successfully and being able to be there for their friends, their family, for your customers, and being able to improve people's lives through that responsibility.
Yeah, I like that. I guess my
Yeah.
viewpoint of success has slowly been changing over the years. Right, when I
Hmm.
was running my consulting company on Amazon with the paycheck and this and that, and
Yeah.
really, it was basically based on financial success. I realized I wasn't what I wanted with my family's health issues and this whole
Yeah.
charity thing. And now I view success as more as what I can do and the impact I can have. So I guess
Hmm.
that is kind of falls into the category of the responsibility I can take on, right?
Sure,
It's
but
the
sometimes people's impact is not going to be large in the grand scheme of things, right? But the responsibility could still be large,
mm,
right?
I get like if that was like out of
like
buddy
there's a
of
lot of people out there who are in a pretty crappy situation. There's not a lot of impact they can have, right?
yeah.
They're very disadvantaged.
Well, yeah, I had a buddy that studied is basically was doing his PhD in Germany, and the overall sum it up, he was why people die. That was what he was studying on his PhD,
Hmm.
and he would discuss it and go further in and go further in. But in the end, he basically realized people die because they don't have responsibility anymore. They don't have an impact in life.
Yeah, yeah,
If you take two identical people and you put one in a home where he doesn't get to see his family and he's just
yeah,
busy and he's basically just being taken care of by being babysat all day,
yeah,
he'll die a lot sooner than the guy that every morning he has to get up and make his granddaughter lunch and help her tie her shoes
yeah,
and help her with her math homework, whatever it is. So
yeah,
every day he has a little responsibility to make sure that kid gets out the door. Heck, one of the
yeah.
oldest men in the world he studied, that lived at home alone. He said, "What gets you out of bed every morning?" He says, "Because got to get angry at the mailman." Right? He's like
Yeah,
the
so he's
mailman never
chosen that
delivers the mail the right time,
responsibility.
and but that's his
Yeah,
responsibility. He's like the mail. If he's get sick that
yeah,
morning, he's like, I'm not gonna be able to talk to this guy. He's
huh,
gonna do the mail wrong. He's gonna do like they have to have some reason to get out of bed and some
yeah,
responsibility to do that, and they'll live for substantially longer.
huh.
And so that's
That's interesting.
one thing that I found. So I
Hmm.
looked at his PhD, I read his dissertation, and a lot of stuff. I'm like, okay, what can I do in life that allows me to give back, help people, and not necessarily be as physically demanding, right?
Yeah,
Because that's
yeah,
the thing too, is that the people that are giving back, that grandpa that's making lunch and helping kids tie shoes, he's not, building the house. He's not that kind of thing as you get
yeah,
older.
yeah,
So I think that's where I've transitioned my mindset to success to be a lot more is that how can I provide value to others
yeah,
and to society
yeah,
that doesn't necessarily require me to swing a hammer? Because you and I are both pretty good at building stuff. Like I've built a lot of things around this property.
yeah,
You've built a lot of things on your property. You've helped me build things. I've helped you build things. We're pretty good at swinging a hammer, and we're pretty good at just
yeah,
doing the work and building it. And that does provide a lot of value, but you can't do that for 80 years, 90 years, right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, you're right.
I think that's just a general viewpoint. So if Graham's idea of success is taking on responsibility, what's your mindsets around money? What does money mean to you? What is like a Canadian dollar, US dollar? What's the value of it to you? What does it mean?
Well, well, a dollar's a dollar. Um, I mean, they're tools, right? That's what a dollar is. You have to treat it with respect, though. You have to treat your money with respect. You can't. Um, you've got to put it where it makes sense. You've got to put it into productive assets, productive things. You can't waste it. You have to be careful about going into too much debt. Very, very few people can go into a lot of debt and get away with it, in my opinion. The vast majority of people, I think you're asking for trouble. I mean, I know of a lot of business owners in this area that have tried to expand their businesses too quickly. They borrowed too much money, and it hasn't worked out for them. It's not an attitude that's gonna go far. I mean, you have to be patient. You have to try and build your businesses through your
Yeah,
cash flow.
that's
And
fair.
maybe you disagree with me on that, Carl.
No,
But
no, I
but
agree.
that's my personal
No, I,
philosophy.
I agree too.
Yeah.
But I have a view like a bit little
hmm
more risk.
I'm
Uh,
not saying you have to hold a bunch of cash. That's not what I'm saying.
yeah, I'm saying
But
I take a little bit more risk with the amount of debt I take on,
yeah, yeah,
and that's just because how I personally view money.
yeah,
But I like that. I don't know. We've always had very different viewpoints on money, but we've ended up at
mhm,
similar spots in life,
yeah,
right? Like I'm like, oh, I like being a little more frivolous with how I do my investments. I'm not saying
yeah,
like I'll go out there and I'll spend money just throwing money at this and
yeah,
that. Like we went to Tremblant every Friday, pretty much all
yeah.
throughout university. It's not that we bought a day pass for $100
In
and
the
rented
winter,
skis for
yeah,
sorry, yeah.
yeah.
And we didn't buy a day pass
not
for a
not in
hundred
June.
bucks. Yeah, didn't buy a day pass. We okay. Sometimes we went in March. That was like plus 15, plus 20, dude, in shorts.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but we wouldn't buy the day pass for 150
yeah,
bucks or $100. We wouldn't buy rent skis for 150 bucks, and we
yeah,
wouldn't buy beers at the hill, and then we wouldn't buy lunch. It's not a $400 day.
yeah, yeah,
We'd buy the pass in like February the previous year for like
yeah,
$200,
yeah. It was
right?
reasonable.
That came with like 5 free hot chocolates. And then we'd pack our own beer. We'd put it in the place we'd go to the fridge. We'd bury it in the snow for like, and those were a buck a beer at Beer King.
Yeah,
And that's if we wanted a beer on the hill. And then we'd pack a lunch.
yeah,
And we'd do the whole day. When you amortize the price of our pass and everything, we do the whole day for less than $20. Pass, gas, beer,
yeah,
and lunch. $20 a
yeah.
day to ski at Tremblant. And our friends that are coming up on Sunday, they're spending like, remember all those boys that come up and they'd spend like $300 a day. They're like, you guys do this every weekend? You must be loaded. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, yeah,
Right? Like we were not spending $300 a day,
yeah,
right? So I view that money can go a lot farther when you have a little bit of forethought with it.
yeah, yeah,
If we can think ahead, you buy the season's pass a little earlier, right? You do that kind of
yeah.
stuff, and you can think a little bit ahead, and you can make your dollar go a lot farther.
Certainly.
So, are there any philosophies or principles of money that guided you growing up? There's some people that are always like, you need to save 50% of your income, or heck, we've had some
Well,
religious people and they give a certain percentage to charity. Is
yeah.
there any like staple, something you live by every day that
Well,
you?
I think you're just your outputs have to be less than your inputs, right? I mean, I grew up. My parents didn't have a lot of money over like growing up. Like they weren't poor, but they were budgeting,
Mhm.
and they ran their own businesses, so they all their income was dependent upon my dad getting sales through his construction company, or my mom. She's an artist as well. My mom sells paintings, so they were entirely dependent upon that. So it made me realize that it's so important that you just don't spend more than what you actually have, what you have coming in. You got to account for that carefully, and you got to be watching constantly. You should always know your bank balances. Um,
So okay, I'm gonna quickly because
yeah.
so does everybody in your household and does everybody always know the bank balances, or do you just trust certain people on it? Because if you always just know your bank balances, I agree. I know mine. I know everything. I know
Yeah,
all aspects of my finances.
yeah,
But the majority of people, that isn't their skill set. So do you believe that you should find somebody you should trust to help you with that? Like in your family, does everybody know everything about the finances, or do you guys?
Well, I know more than the rest of my family would. It's true. It's true. But
Because
it's still a necessity for success, right?
Mhm.
Regardless of whether you're good at it or not. I mean, it's whether you like it or not. I mean, that's the way
that's the way the cookie crumbles. That's the way
yeah.
life is
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair. So then, do you find that running this business and running all these different businesses, the dozen
Hmm.
businesses your family has and have done, and
Yeah.
all these things, do you find you've done this based on your mindset, your ideas, because of who you are as a person? Do you just have some inherent thing that I'm better at starting businesses than everybody else, that's why I do it?
Well,
Or like,
yeah.
what is the reason you do it? Because everybody's like, oh yeah, I can be my business owner, I can be my own boss, and a lot of
Yeah.
businesses fail.
Yeah.
How many businesses have you guys had that have failed? Right? They
Well,
say like,
overall, my family, no, nothing's really failed. I mean,
like
some have done better than
well,
others.
of course, but like,
Yeah, yeah.
but a lot of people say a lot of small businesses fail. Why do you guys think that you have such a high success rate in
Oh,
starting
well,
small
just because we're all
businesses?
in on it, we're committed to it, right? I mean, a lot of small businesses fail probably not because they go bankrupt, but because the owners get bored. The owners don't want to put in the work. They don't want to put in the toil to make it work, right? That's why they fail. It's not like in certain cases, yeah, something's just completely financially unviable. But I mean, small businesses are notorious for going
Well,
bankrupt.
especially restaurants,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Restaurants
Like that's
are.
what I'm saying. You
Yeah,
run a seasonal restaurant that's
yeah,
profitable in an area that
yeah.
what's the population of Dorset?
Well, permanently, just in the village, it's only 500.
Yeah, I'm
But
like,
there's lots of cottages
yeah, but it's
around.
but
Tens of
if
thousands
you
of
could
people
say
in the
the
summer.
average, like most restaurants fail. It's only like
Hmm.
18% of restaurants or something crazy. Like
Yeah,
that, a small
I think
statistic
it's more than that. I think.
actually are
I think it's.
successful after
I
five
think
years.
it's. I actually don't know the statistics, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 50% of restaurants will not be around in 5 years, something
Yeah,
like that.
I know it's less than 50. That's all I know, but it's less than 50 restaurants won't be around in 5 years, and those are in
Yeah,
places with populations of
yeah,
people,
yeah,
right? Like you sell like over 30,000 pizzas in a summer in a town that has 500 people. Obviously, it's a tourist
yeah, yeah,
destination, but
yeah,
like the idea is that like you're in a small town,
yeah,
you run a restaurant that's
yeah,
somewhat niche
yeah,
with nothing else around, like, and it's successful.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
the thing is, and it's grown and it's bigger, and there's so many things you've learned from it,
yeah,
and it's like the average person, when you do a business plan on that, for
yeah,
example, like when we learn in high school, when you learn in business school and everything, if you do a business plan on that
yeah.
business, that would not have passed a business plan. Nobody would be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and the reason we've been successful though is the quality of our food is exceptional,
Hmm.
if I may say so myself.
No, I agree.
I mean, we're offering better pizza than what you can get probably within 200 kilometers.
I
Maybe
literally,
Toronto, like downtown Toronto. And you know, I haven't actually gone around in
but
Toronto. I don't eat pizza. I don't eat it outside of our pizzeria, so I don't know.
I
But
have, I have, and
yeah,
I not to toot your horn or anything, but I truthfully believe that I
yeah.
haven't had better pizza in Canada.
Well, thanks. And you're not the only one to say that. I mean, I do get a lot of people coming up to me and saying that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like I've been all over
So
BC,
that's
been
the
to
number
Quebec,
one reason. That's the number one reason why we're
yeah,
successful. And because of that, we become a road trip destination.
yeah,
Um, so that's why we're able to sell so many pizzas.
fair.
Yeah. Um,
What do you believe is the most significant lesson you've learned on your journey in success?
the most significant lesson, I mean, to the journey of building this pizzeria, probably
Or anything, your storage units, that your dad's,
patience. It's patience. I mean, you cannot expect things to happen right away. It has taken us 15 years to get the pizzeria to this 30,000 pizza a day mark. Started in 2010. I'm only 26, so I only started becoming aware of the numbers really
really,
maybe about
you were in high school.
20, yeah, but I can't recall the exact numbers. Maybe 2018. So 2018 we sold 13,000 pizzas. Sorry. No, we sold 10,000 in 2018. 2019 we sold 18,000 pizzas. 2020 we sold 17,000 pizzas. 2021 we sold 29,000 pizzas. 2022 we sold 31,000. So last year we had sold 30,000. So slight reduction, but from 2022. But to get that spurt of growth there in that 3-4 year period, I mean, it took us 10 years of
Well,
to
yeah,
get there. Right? I mean, and it is like someone could have grown it faster. They could have, but again, it's like you said, it's not obvious. It would not have passed a business plan at the
no,
start. So it's not obvious where the money is, where the market is. The market is, if it was obvious, people would already be doing it, right? So
hmm,
you have
fair
to be
point.
patient in order to see where the market's going.
Okay, but the one thing I want to
Patience. It
touch
is
on with
patience.
patience is that
Yeah.
patience isn't just sitting in your room watching Netflix.
No, 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 no.
So what do you define as patience, right? Because you could just wait all day. I could sit here on this couch and watch movies all
Yeah, yeah,
day,
yeah.
every day, and I'd
Yeah.
just be waiting. Like,
Patience
what
is
is?
making small tweaks here and there, seeing how it's received by people, and then where it is received well, just growing that slowly. It's important to grow it slowly, not too fast.
Yeah,
Yeah, because you don't. I mean, human beings, we're all so dumb. Like nobody knows what's going on. Nobody can predict the stock market. I
yeah,
mean, like there's a lot of people out there who pretend they know what's going on, but they don't. So you got to be
yeah,
careful.
yeah. I feel like anybody that says they really know what's going on is just either a little bit,
Yeah, for clicks. Yeah,
overestimating their abilities, or
yeah,
just downright lying. And if they did know what was going on, they're not going to tell you. Oh my goodness, if you can actually know
yeah,
what's going on in the future, if there's somebody that's actually capable of doing that, they're
yeah,
going to be the most powerful human in the world. Like if they can
yeah,
actually predict when's going to go up, what's going to go down,
yeah.
like they're not going to tell everybody how to do it.
Yeah, yeah. And if you could predict the future 51% of the time, I mean,
Yeah,
you'd be wealthy. Yeah,
exactly. And that's just 51% of the time. So,
yeah.
are there any mistakes or failures that in any of your business practices or anything in life that turned out to be valuable lessons?
Well, I guess you could say maybe the patience could be a weakness too here and a failure, right?
Okay.
Because we could have expanded it slightly quicker. But again, it's not a deadly sin, right?
Yeah.
Being too anxious and doing things too fast is a deadly sin. But being cautious, yeah, it can be. I don't know if I would say it's. We have been cautious. I'll admit that. I mean, but the yeah uh other failures, maybe charging not charging enough. I mean,
I
that
think
is
I
that
think
is an
that'd be my
important
guess.
thing. That's an important thing in business that I'm actually just recently starting to wrap my head around. And it's
Because
it
my father,
yeah,
my mother, I don't know how many other people I know that
yeah,
like have been to your pizzas. One of first guest Max, they're like,
yeah,
he could charge more for this. I pay twice the amount of things in the city for this, and
yeah,
this is better,
yeah.
right? And you've always been like, no, or the idea that you don't take tips, you don't have like, and you
Well, we do
pay,
take tips. We just
yeah,
don't want
but
to confront people with the tip
when you have
option.
the tip option, right?
Yeah.
They're a little there in the bowl, but
No, I
like,
have a sign that says, if you would like to tip electronically, please let the server know.
yeah, that's not obvious in
Yeah.
your face. Like when you go to a coffee shop, I know there's some like 15, 20, and
Hmm, hmm.
30% tips. Like you're not always like tip us,
Yeah.
tip us, tip
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
you don't make people feel ashamed for not doing that, right? So you've always
Well,
been,
tipping culture is getting out of control, though. I mean,
yes,
the like we're selling mostly takeout pizzas. There is no service. We're selling them a manufactured product that we've made. I'm not giving it to them with a bow tie on a table here. Like it's going in a pizza box. So
yeah,
I don't feel right having an electronic tip option automatically presented because it implies it's a request. When you put an automatic tip option on a machine, it's a request from the business for a tip.
yeah,
And I'm happy to accept tips. We actually get a lot of tips. I mean,
yeah. But I think you could quadruple them
yeah,
if you
we get
just,
$1,000 a week easily
yeah.
in tips.
A good a good waiter in Toronto, like a good bottle service girl, will make that in a night.
Yeah, but our tip rate is below 2%.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah,
the thing is that because it's not in your face, right?
yeah,
People
yeah,
don't think about it.
yeah.
And so that's why I find you have a very, I guess I wouldn't call it a failure, but if you do, that's an interesting one. That
Well,
is
I think
you
it's
haven't.
important to be able to charge well. You don't want to charge too much though. I think there's other people who make that mistake of charging too much, and it leaves a bad taste in people's mouth when they feel they've overpaid for something. I
Hmm.
mean, that's a way to ensure you don't get repeat customers. We have a very good repeat customer base.
Yep.
We use a Square system for processing our payments,
Yep.
and it tells you often what your repeat customer rate is because it can track the credit cards that have been tapped there.
Okay,
And
interesting.
sometimes some
Yeah.
days we have 50% return rate.
From the day before or from the
No,
year
no, just
before? What do you
from
mean?
people who've been there, like in general.
Okay,
So
and that's just
that's
their credit
impressive.
card because
Yeah,
I have 9 credit cards,
yeah. So
right? So it's like
or you pay cash, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Well,
yeah.
you guys still do a fair bit of cash, which is interesting. A lot of businesses don't do that as much these
Well,
days.
actually, it's not that much. It only amounts to 15%. 15% of our sales is paid in cash, which we try to encourage cash. Small businesses like cash because we pay 2.5% to the credit card company
Yes.
in order to process the credit cards. It costs us. We spent $14,000 last year on credit card processing fees to Square. If people had just
That's
paid
it.
a bit more cash,
That's not bad.
if people had paid more cash,
We
though,
do a lot a lot more than that here.
yeah. But if they had paid more cash, I mean, that could have saved a lot of money,
Yeah, I
and it
could have
could have.
saved that 15 grand.
You know what it is on a pizza? It's about 40 cents on a pizza. So a pizza could be 40 cents cheaper if people would just pay cash.
Fair. That's a
I
good
mean, think of
point.
it that way. That's what you're paying for to use that credit card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've talked a lot about your viewpoints on success and how many
Mhm.
hours you work in the summer and all those ideas of the seasonal business and how you do
Yeah.
other things. But so, what is Graham's definition of a work-life balance? How do you find you have enough time to do all the work you're doing, plus go to the gym, plus
Uh-huh.
be social, all the lives we have, all the social stuff
Yeah.
we do, plus go on dates, plus everything
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
in life? Because obviously, in the summer, when you're doing those 70 days straight of 14 hours a
Yeah.
day, 15 hours a day,
Yeah.
we're not having beers in the evenings. We're not
No.
being social. What is your definition of a
Well,
work-life
you really got
balance?
to be motivated by what you're doing. You really got to like what you're doing, right? Because the whole idea of a work-life balance only applies to people who hate what they're doing, right? I mean, if you hate what you're doing, and it's like drudgery, and you're just sitting at a desk job all the time, or whatever it is you're doing, maybe you like a desk job. It's okay. I'm not judging, but um, yeah, if you don't like that, then you're looking for balance, right? You're looking what's something that can help me decompress and all this sort of stuff. I don't have that issue because I really enjoy, like I said, taking on the responsibility of running this business. Like responsibility gives me meaning. This is the best way I can allocate my responsibility. And even if I am working 14 hours a day, I like it's fine with me because I'm putting that into something I enjoy doing. And so I work life balance doesn't even enter my mind. I just think, oh, this is what has to be done. I do get to do other things though, because like I said, it's a seasonal business and
Yeah.
and
But
and I
that's the
get
thing
time
is
off.
you I don't know, like that was my always my follow-up question
Hmm.
is how do you manage the stress of that? But if it's not you don't find it stressful because you've chosen to do it
Yeah.
and you enjoy what you're doing, then you manage the stress by
Hmm.
going to work, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's only stressful if it's like not voluntary, right?
yeah.
Like you that if responsibility is being put on you and you don't want that responsibility, then it's stressful.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
if you're choosing to get up and like if you say, oh, I have to go to work every day at
Yeah.
7 a.m. before and I finish at 9 p.m. every day,
Yeah.
and that's been put on you and you don't want to do it, that's annoying and that's stressful. But you choose to do that every day, right? Like you
Yeah.
choose to get up 7 days a week before 6 a.m. and get to the pizzeria. That's
Yeah.
your choice. It's
Yeah.
not like you have. It's not like you're backed in a corner. You have an engineering degree. You can go do
Yeah.
another job. You can. You don't have to do any of
But
this.
you've got to look for the enjoyment in it, right? It's not always obvious to people. At first, they might think it's drudgery. Sometimes in the beginning of the year, in the spring, before I'm working these 14-hour days, I feel a little apprehensive about it all. But
Yeah.
you've got to look for the good parts of it. You can't focus on the bad parts. You can't listen to this whole cultural stuff we see on the internet about needing work-life balance, needing to I don't know, have mental health breaks or whatever, go on vacations. You don't need to do that. I mean, that they're just trying to get into your head. So because believe me, after you're done taking on responsibility and working hard and improving your business, you're going to feel great afterwards. It's going to feel far better
It's
than
more.
any vacation is going to
It's
make you
more
feel.
fulfilling. I will give you that for sure.
You're going to feel more proud of yourself. It's just better. I mean, vacations aren't gonna. There
Okay.
isn't any
This,
value.
yeah, so I feel like this is funny. You and I have actually tried to make our lives a little bit of a vacation. Like,
I guess,
no,
but
because it's what we
yeah,
chose to do, right? Like, what do you
yeah,
like to do? Like, you and I like to go and do things. We like to go, for example, snowmobiling. We bought
yeah,
snowmobiles and go do that in our off season,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
We like snowmobiling for lots of reasons, but one of them
yeah,
is it's in our off season. It's in the camp off
yeah,
season. It's in, the off season. And what do? We have the saunas, we got the hot tubs, we do the cold
yeah,
plunges. Like, what we like to do is tailor around, like, for example, you with your work.
yeah,
You bought the sauna, you put it in, you built it, you do all those kind of
yeah,
things. And you enjoy doing it in your off season. You're not going to be spending every day in your sauna in the summer because you're too busy,
yeah, yeah,
right? But that you've built your life as a vacation. You're like, okay, what would I want to go do on vacation? Traveling is different.
yeah,
We like going to travel and experience different cultures, but the
yeah,
idea of just going to sit on a beach and
yeah,
have stuff done for you and those kind of things
yeah.
is,
It's a strange concept, I think.
yeah.
Um,
I don't know. It's fun. Like I've done it. It's nice to be all served and
I can
done
only
for
do that
you.
for about 12 hours. I can only.
You
Then
gotta
I'm
do it.
done. Then I'm done.
It's done. Yeah.
Got to go do something.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah, yeah. And I am a very highly energetic individual, so there's that. But
So I guess my
yeah.
last question to close this off is
Mhm.
what advice do you have, or do you have any tidbits of knowledge you would like to share for any of our listeners? Anything that you feel is really
Oh,
important?
I don't know if I'm qualified to give any advice to people. I mean, um,
Well, I feel like there's lots of advice.
I think people should need to do a better job in general of working with their family, of getting along with people. I think we live in a very highly individualistic culture, and people. It's like you said when you were younger, you had this idea of wanting to build everything yourself, and I think that's a very new idea. Like I think maybe 50, 100 years ago, people didn't concern themselves as much with that.
Hmm.
Um, it's a new idea, but you're going to be stronger. if you work with, and it doesn't have to be your parents per se. It just has to be the people around you. Like it has to, you have to try and get out of your head this idea of being independent, and try and work and build stuff as a group with people around you. Um, I think families are a great structure, and they should be nurtured and maintained.
And if you don't necessarily have an ideal family circumstance, you can
Hmm.
always find some sort of community, right? Like when we were at university, we were still friends. You had
Hmm.
lots of friends. I always had my sports teams,
Yeah,
right? We
yeah,
always met people at Trumbull. You can always
yeah,
find people to go experience life with and build a little bit of a community with. It doesn't just have to necessarily be family,
yeah,
but I do believe a lot of people overlook that idea of
yeah,
family
yeah.
and the idea that you have a community right there that already kind of has your back. It might not be perfect right
Hmm.
now, but
Hmm.
it is worth looking into and looking at building of what your family's done.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you
Well,
so much for coming out today.
yeah. Thank you, Carl. It was
It's
a
been
pleasure.
pretty good to have it up. Now we're gonna close out this
Yeah.
and probably go have a sauna and jump on a frozen
Yeah.
lake, eh? It's
Sounds
pretty cold
good.
today. What's it?
Minus 16 this morning. I know.
Minus 12 right now, a little windy. That's gonna be a
Yeah.
cold swim in the lake, Graham. Are you sure you're gonna do that? Jump
I don't
underneath some
know.
of
I
the
don't
ice?
know.
Anyways, Well,
So yeah, then
that
I'll cut
brings
it
us
there.
to the end of the 9th enlightening episode of the Young and Successful podcast. I hope you have enjoyed Graham's perspectives as much as we have here. Remember, making the first million is not just about the destination. It's about the journey, the lessons learned, the challenges conquered, and the laughter shared along the way. So don't forget to enjoy every single step of your success story. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, give us a virtual thumbs up, subscribe, leave a review, or do whatever you want to do to share us with your fellow dreamers and doers. And hey, if you've got a story to share, you want to be a guest, or a topic you really want us to dive into, slide in our DMs or send us an email. We would love to hear from you. Until next Friday, stay young, stay hungry, and keep chasing those millions with a smile on your face. And always remember, there's a million ways to make $1 million. This is Carl Grin, signing off.